Welcome to Between Two Pastries, a not-so-typical nutrition podcast. Nicole and Annie are licensed and registered dietitians. Join them as they discuss hot nutrition topics, challenge popular beliefs, and have a blast doing it. Here are your hosts, Nicole and Annie.
Welcome to Between Two Pastries, everybody. This is Nicole.
Hey, everyone, it's Annie.
And welcome back, Annie. Welcome
Thank
back. Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Oh, I
cool.
guess we're on video for this one.
And we are on video.
So we have Alex here as well.
Welcome, Alex.
He'll be joining.
We have two great guests today. Yeah.
There might be a burp pretty quick here.
Right.
An adult sized.
So our main great guest today is a client of mine, Rick. Rick, I'm going to have you introduce yourself fully, but very happy to have you on today. We have a lot of topics to kind of discuss. One of the main ones we wanted to talk about was body image. In particular, Rick went through a pretty significant health crises, I guess you could call it. And I'll have him explain a little bit more. He wrote an amazing book. It's such an easy read. I highly recommend it. Really gives you a really lovely perspective on life and desires and being courageous and bold and really, touching life with everything you have. So I highly recommend the book just for that reason as well. Rick, welcome. Please feel free to talk all about yourself.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you both for having me. It's a pleasure to be here between two pastries. I'm a fan of pastries, so I thought this was going to be a baking podcast, but but it's great.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah.
No, this is the right place. Nicole, you're right. I've been a client of yours, for 5-6 years, something like that.
It's
Like
crazy.
been a long time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I will say that I've dropped between 50 to 60 pounds of fat and gained 40 or 50 pounds of muscle.
Yes.
So you really helped me quite a bit, and I've been reproportioned thanks to Nicole's plans and work. So I highly recommend going to see Way of Life Nutrition if you're in the market. So my name is Rick Czaplewski. I live here in Milwaukee. I'm a 27-year, two-time cancer survivor. I was diagnosed when I was in college. I had 70 total radiation treatments. I had 8 months of chemotherapy. And when that's done, what many cancer survivors, myself included, would tell you is you leave the structure of treatment, you get to that final day, they're ringing a bell and there's balloons or however they celebrate that. In my day, it was my mom brought a cheese and sausage platter to the hospital.
That's awesome.
Gave it to the nurses. There wasn't any other fanfare besides the sausage. And that was that. And you leave and you're kind of like, what was this all about? And then you become a survivor, or you put the cancer treatment behind you and you try to reintegrate yourself into life. And you've changed quite a bit, but the world has really stayed the same. And you're trying to refit into those shoes you were in.
Right.
Since that point in time, it's been 27 years. I've done a lot of fun adventures. I've leaned into endurance sports throughout the years and athletics. My son he's going to be 20 at the end of February.
Wow.
He's actually the age now. When I was going through it, that's his age today. So see a lot of me and him and vice versa. He's a sophomore at UW La Crosse, and he's also going into kinesiology, nutrition, and physical therapy. So
good for him.
like you guys. Yeah, it's cool.
Good for him.
And yeah, I wrote a book. That book, Better Dirty Than Done, was written for my son. And it's a very intimate, emotional story of me going through cancer. But I didn't want to write a book and have it be like a cancer only type thing. So I put a lot of other things that I've done throughout the years in the book. But when you're reading it, it'll feel like I'm imagining those things as I'm going as you go through it. And then at the end, you realize, wow, this guy really did all these cool things. So yeah, happy to be here. And
Well, it's great to have you, Rick. It really
Yeah.
is. And like I said, your book is I mean, it's like a mixed bag, right? Because it's like obviously there's like some real sadness that I know I was feeling going through it. And yet it's like hilarious at the same time. So like I'm laughing. Um and then I'm like reading the book and sort of like making comments to you. You're not in my living room, but you know, like like I didn't know this about you, Rick. What? Um, but yeah, no, it's an awesome read, but I love all the adventures that you went on. And you know, even when you came to me five-ish years ago or whatever that is, like you know, you're really an athletic guy. Like you love pushing hard. You love like getting in there and doing cool stuff. Um
Nicole, can I just real quick with a question? Did you go to Nicole because you were post cancer, because was it related to cancer nutrition as to why you went and saw Nicole in the first place?
No, actually, those were not related at all.
Okay.
I had gone through a divorce and put on a lot of weight, and I was really having a rough time just cracking the science on my diet. And
Okay.
I didn't know what to do, and my physician recommended her, and I'm glad he
Okay.
did. And that's one of those things where if you need somebody to, I needed to outsource that knowledge, and now I've got an expert helping me. So that's
Yeah.
why.
that's awesome.
That's
Awesome.
cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
There.
So because we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about you know, really hitting on that body image piece, you know, you I have to laugh sometimes the way you sort of like describe yourself and things like this. Um but I am kind of wondering just in general, you know, what that felt like from you from being diagnosed in general and just sort of that experience of how, you know, your body did shift, even how it shifted in performance, right? You know, like you're going to feel everything. So it's kind of like, what was that? What was that like for you?
Well, at that age, I was coming out of high school, and I was really athletic in high school. I wrestled, I played football. I liked to run and lift and do all those things. And I participated in 3 state tournaments, so I got pretty good at the sports that I played. So a lot of my self-worth, self-image at age 19 was tied up in my image of myself as an athlete and of my body as being incredibly strong.
Mhm.
Nicole, believe it or not, I was around 9 to 10% body fat at one point in time.
I do believe
So,
that. You're just a rock in general. So yeah, I believe that.
so, so what ended up happening is when I was diagnosed, I began radiation, and I had radiation in college. The hospital was located right next to my university, and after I went through all that, I decided, or my family, we decided that I could stay in college and get radiation at the hospital directly next to campus. And so what I would do is I'd wake up in the morning, I would go and go down and go to classes and everything. Then I would have lunch. I would return to my dorm room and put my stuff away. Then I would walk over to the hospital alone to get radiation. And then I would come back to the dorms and throw up.
Ugh.
And when you're a freshman in a college dorm and you're throwing up, people are like, "Yeah, this guy had a lot to drink. Way to go!"
Right.
You're getting like a cheering section sometimes, and it didn't. Unusually that was not a red flag, or it didn't stand out at all.
It is
Um,
something odd.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but I was doing that because I got sick, and then I would go back to my room, maybe try to eat a light dinner if I could get the food down,
Mm,
and go to sleep.
mm.
And so what that did to my body and my body image at the time is I went from like 200 pounds, 9-10% body fat to like 150
Mm.
on my frame, which looks really
Oh yeah.
very skull,
Yeah. Yeah.
like emaciated. I didn't know what to do because like I could not hold any food down when I was
Mm,
getting radiated. I got it basically radiated from belt to neck,
mm,
from here, the belt line.
mm.
So when you're getting all that done, I mean, you're nauseous nonstop. You can't eat anything. And My diet at the time consisted of a couple insured drinks, watermelon, and maybe some macaroni and cheese. And my advice to people going through like a traumatic experience like that is whatever you can get down is valuable. I mean,
That's right.
avoiding food is not the answer, but whatever. I mean, as goofy as it sounds, those like watermelons that are like a circle. I was eating like one of those a day because that's all I could eat.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that was doing the trick. It was, and then when radiation was done, what a main side effect of radiation is you're completely fatigued. Like I was sleeping, not exaggerating, 16 to 20 hours a day after that. You're sleeping it off, I guess. But and then my parents, like I was living with them, they'd wake me up like instead of waking me up at like 4 p.m., they'd wake me up at 3 and then just kind of like dial it back so I could get a little bit of stamina heading back to college the next day.
Wow.
So,
How did you manage going to classes? I mean, wasn't that tough?
You just do it, period. What I wanted more than anything as a college freshman when I was diagnosed the first time was to be a normal, regular college student. I told no one. I told my boss and I told one of my friends, her name is Jennifer. Those are the only people who knew. And I'd go to class. I lost my voice. I mean, I had burns on my neck. Hair was falling out in the back of my head. I didn't care. I didn't tell anybody anything. I just kept going to class. The semester ended and it was hard doing it alone, but I think it would be even harder in my mind at the time. It was harder for me to tell anyone. And anytime I tried to like broach the subject, people couldn't empathize. I mean, not that peer group. It just wasn't available. And in the 90s, there was no information or support groups or internet or phone or hotlines or any of that. So I was doing this completely alone. And that's one of the reasons now that I speak to crowds that I try to be involved with cancer is so no one walks alone. That's the name of my business.
That's awesome. How long was the whole thing for?
So I had cancer twice. That was the first time I was radiated while I was in college. And then when that was over, I went back. After that summer of sleeping, I went back. And it was 18 months later that I started to have some back pain. I went to the emergency room in the same hospital. They thought it was, well, your mattress is too soft or, something like that. So my mom was very persistent with, you need an x-ray. So I got an x-ray that led to a CT scan, guided needle biopsy of my back. I was told, hey, you've got cancer, it's back. Yeah, the first time it was kind of an ignorance is bliss and I was just maintaining status quo. This time it was serious. I had to drop out of college. And I had 5 weeks to go in the semester and they said, it's not moving fast. You can continue with the semester, you can finish it off. And then the start of the spring semester, you're going to have to stay home and get chemo. I had chemo at a clinic that was right outside of St. Luke's Hospital here in town.
Wow.
And the clinic's gone. It was absorbed by the Vince Lombardi Cancer Center. It's like an administrative building, but the building is there. So what I did that last 5 weeks of college, there were some really unusual happenings. Like one of my professors, I told her, I have to leave. I have to miss your class a couple times because I'm getting some scans and I need to get tests and blood work or whatever. I'm just going to have to miss it. She's like very understanding. Okay. So then, like a week later, I walk into class and people are like, what? Who is this guy? And the woman sitting next to me says, what are you doing here? I said, what do you mean? I'm here to go into class. She goes, she told everybody you had cancer and you were going to die. And now you're here. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's just, there's just so many weird.
It sounds like a HIPAA thing now. I don't think they would do that.
I mean, it's the 90s, things were a little bit different but that's what we went through. And that was just part of the story. And so,
did that help that now it was out a little bit more? I mean, did that help you with just feeling more comfortable talking about it?
No, it made it worse. It
Made
made
it
me
worse.
very, I mean, in this era, I mean, people were looking at me like a pariah. And so it was kind of a positive in one regard. That last 5 weeks, I was so ticked off. I was just fuming angry that I had to drop out of college.
Yeah.
And that's a process. When you drop out of college, you have to get all these signatures. And one of the more amusing stories was I had to get a signature from a dean to get like one of my mom found some correspondence classes for me to take. To get him to approve it, I had to get a signature. Now you think, all right, this would be no brainer. So I go in there, I'm explaining to him the whole thing. And he kind of like looks at my paper and he goes, I don't really think this class description quite fits. It's pretty close, but I don't know if I can sign this. And I said, I might be dead in like 6 months. Can you make an exception?
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, you know what? Yes, I can. And it's like, just to see, like, as
hello.
Yeah, and as like an adult now, thinking about him then, dude, just it's just interesting that writing this book now. I wrote the book over COVID. I didn't write it when I was going through it, but having the perspective of the people who are like him involved along the way, just to think about, like, as an adult, why would you do it like that?
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but it reminds me of that whole concept of like kids needing to have snacks in school and teachers not allowing it.
Yes.
Like, it's just stupid things.
Yeah.
It's like, how does this affect you?
Correct.
Why does this matter to you? Why would you say no? Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems so silly as something that was experienced 10, 20, 30 years ago. And now looking back, it's like, what were people thinking?
I know. It's
wild.
just wild. So I studied. So I was so angry that last 5 weeks. I studied so hard, and my goal was, if I was gonna die, I wanted to have a really good GPA. So if somebody went back and looked at my transcript, they would have seen that I went out really strong, and I ended up getting a 4.0. That was the only time I ever got that in college, because I was just possessed by getting that. I was just so angry, and then I dropped out. Then I'm like. Now it's like, all right, I'm walking my stuff out of my building. I was an RA. So to see an RA leaving was like, wait, what's this guy doing? And then it just kind of like came out, right? Like, people are starting to know, but pre-email, internet, all that stuff, I moved back and didn't really have any way to connect with anyone. So I did a lot of this again by myself. I had my parents, but they worked during the day. So I'd see them like in the morning and at night and everything. And my grandma and my mom would drive me to treatment. But when it came to food during that time, chemo really jacks up your taste buds. Like, you have open mouth sores. Your mouth tastes like copper, metal, or something, just bad tastes. So the things that really goofed me up was if I smelled chicken soup, any type of meal, Kentucky Fried, whatever, I wanted to immediately vomit. It was bad. It was like, like if one night my mom tried to like sneak like hey, we're going to make a chicken casserole because we're sick of eating, we're not sick of this, right? So she tried to sneak that in with my dad, and I'm like, immediately smelled it. It was like, no.
Did you throw up?
Oh yeah, all the time. It was just like retching. Like, it's horrible and
like unavoidable.
But what got me through chemo was round steak.
Oh wow.
Like,
yeah.
a cheap, like almost like the skirt steak with the eye of round.
Yeah.
I ate that like 4 or 5 days.
It's leaner. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. That was really good.
Yeah, I know. But there's a part of me, like, I often wonder, like, does the body kind of know though too? Because like I think of that and I think like all that iron and, just that really good, and you got to wonder sometimes, like, the body like knows what it needs.
It knows what it needs. I mean, I know that sometimes sounds really wackadoodly, but really it does,
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were ordering that by like the tens of pounds, and prepping it differently, and it's a slow cooker versus stir
Oh
fry,
man.
all this
That's
stuff. That's what we were
crazy.
working with. And it worked. And it was the one thing that like cut through all the sensory deprivation. Like it smelled just right, tasted just right. Like it was perfect.
I wonder
And
why.
interestingly, yeah, it's weird, right? So
Yeah.
I've looked on like I participate in a lot of different cancer boards, and hey, other survivors saying, hey, what worked for me? And
Mm-hmm.
I've thrown that on the board, and a lot of people are like, yeah, me too, me too.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this, round steak and chemo, it's a good it's like a wine pairing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and treatment sucks.
Yeah.
It's what ended up the body image story I have for treatment that I think is relevant to a lot of people, and I'd like to tell you guys, is when you start chemo, one of the biggest symptoms or biggest byproducts is bloating, like really big bloating, like the blueberry veruca salt girl in Willy Wonka bloating.
Oh, sure.
As somebody who at this age I was 20, I turned 21 during my treatments, but I was 20 and I was looking in the mirror and I was just picturing myself, as an 18-year-old when I was wrestling and playing sports and stuff. I looked so good. And now I looked like a whale. Like I just like, wow. Like I was just so mad. Like, you've got to do something about this, and just screaming in my own head. And then, I'd look at it from the side and look from the side, and then looking at, and then out of nowhere, and this is like a divine intervention.
Yeah.
A voice, really, this is like, a voice said, this is not the time to worry what you look like. Your body's
love it. I love it.
can heal.
I love hearing that. Like, yes,
I think
I want everyone
hears
to
that
hear
voice.
that.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But it's a matter of listening to it or not, and really
Yes.
understanding why you're getting that signal.
Gosh.
Yeah. It was like a bolt of lightning. It was out of nowhere. It says, your body is the arena and the combatant in the fight. It's doing both. It's
There you
fighting
go.
and it's holding in the chemicals.
Yep.
And this voice, with some counsel, is explaining, you're healing now. Don't worry about what you look like. You're in the process of healing. And the thing is, I don't have any photos from that time. I didn't let anybody take any pictures. This is before ubiquitous photography. And I mean, I think the one photo that I have was my parents took me to Disney, and almost similar to a Make-A-Wish thing. Like, this is it. And we're going to just do a more fun thing. And I'm just like, massive. But that voice like has stuck with me. So I would go to races. I would go to swims in a Speedo. I don't care what I look like there.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna
awesome.
blow away half that swimming field and looking like this. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't need to look like the cover of a magazine or Instagram, any of that stuff. I'm more concerned about, here's the gift that I received, this body.
100%.
And I want to be able to pump out as much, sensory endurance, all those tactile things I want for myself, versus I'm gonna admonish my own body for that. And
I love that, Rick. That is incredible. That's what I want for everyone. And that is what is so I just love that. And the cool part though is that I am wondering if this was the time then that you were like, I'm going to do all of these things. This is when I'm going to do all these events. This is when I'm like, I'm doing this. I've always wanted to do this. I'm going and I'm doing this. And again, we're talking about, regardless of the training or lack thereof, right? I mean, you talk about that. It's just like, hell, I'm doing this, right? How you look, blah, 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 all the things that people can get really wrapped up in. And you're just like, no, I'm doing it. I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm going to experience this. I'm letting go of the outcome. The outcome is simply that I finish. The beauty is so much more happened with that, with the body you were in.
Right.
With the body you were in.
So many people choose to sit in the corner in the dark because of what their body looks like and their circumstance, instead of just going and living life. And how much happier were you being able to live life regardless of your circumstance?
Yeah.
Could that have made your circumstance better in a sense and gotten you through more treatment, versus sitting in the corner?
In the immediacy, it was an immediate, abrupt reprioritization of what's important at that moment. And it was no longer about self-image. This is survival. And you had to survive, you got to treat yourself well inside. And that voice, if you're constantly hammering yourself over what you look like, that's totally counterproductive to healing. And my body was in a physical healing state when that happened. And that happened after my first or second chemo. I think it was after my first. And it was from that point forward, it was like, free pass, man. Like, screw it. This is what I look like. I'm throwing it out there. I'm going to show up and fight, and
love it.
Who cares? And then the thing that I really wanted most of all when I was going through treatment was to graduate from college, to see other people, getting wasted all the time and smoking and doing drugs and stuff and, trashing their bodies, where I'm fighting tooth and nail just to survive.
Yeah.
And those people were going to make it, and I wasn't. Made me so, it still makes me angry. It just, that to me was my big game changer, was in terms of healthy habits, healthy-ish eating, very, very little alcohol, that kind of stuff. Like, and those habits starting then, that Dr. Peter Adia's book, Outlive, one of the things he talks about is your health span and your lifespan. Your lifespan is from birthday to the day you die. That's your tombstone. And your health span is the point in time that you're healthy throughout your life. So for me, my health span has a 3-year blip. Like, it's below my lifespan. Like, I was unhealthy, unable to do what I wanted. And I don't want to ever go back. So the habits that I do now might sacrifice pleasure in the moment, but later in life, I want to be ambulatory, and I don't want to be dealing with a chronic condition. So I'm trying to set myself up now for that. And I think that's where healthy eating and lifestyle comes into play.
Yeah.
But that healthy eating doesn't necessarily mean thin and
correct
diets and not eating this or that or whatever. That's the piece that really people can't seem to grab onto.
Right. So
this is going to be something I talk about with you, Nicole, in my next appointment, is the concept of being metabolically healthy.
Great.
And the 5 markers that.
Ooh, she's an expert at that.
I can't wait.
I think we did a presentation on that metabolic stuff.
We did.
Yeah, she's an expert. I was a sideshow for that one.
That's hilarious. Oh gosh, that's so funny. Cool. So again, your book, I love the detail that you get into and the creativity of how you chose to write these experiences in your book. But again, we have so many athletes who listen to our podcast, and I just think that they would appreciate, kind of hearing a little bit about, again, here you are in whatever body that is at the time, and you had some very, very important missions that you thought, I'm just going to do. And I'm just wondering if you could just bullet point a few of those and maybe the whys behind them, because they're all different types of events and things.
4 years after I completed treatment, it was my cancerversary is July 31st, 1996. 4 years, July 31st, 2000, I climbed Mount Rainier. My mission in these events was to get back what was taken from me. I mean, what do you want the most, right? You want what you've lost, right? Because you're like, I can't believe I lost that. It was so great when I had. To me, it was that. And I wanted to create an athletic resume that was diverse. Like, I'm not just a good runner or one thing. Like, I wanted to do a bunch of stuff in different disciplines to say, look, I've done all of these things. So it started with Mount Rainier and climbing with Rainier mountaineering. And then the second foray, which was running/swimming, started with me splitting my pants. I used to live in Sacramento. My former wife and I are both from Wisconsin we would travel from Sacramento to Wisconsin, especially over the holidays. And when we were here, we ate with no filter, with complete reckless abandon, cookies, sweets, whatever. We were total pigs for like 2 weeks. And so I went berserk over a Christmas break, and she says, go to the grocery store and pick up some meat or whatever. So I go to the grocery store, and as I'm getting out of the car, I like split my Dockers, and I got like, oh shit. So now I'm put the jacket around my waist. I go in there. I'm like, this, you got to do something. You just went nuts for 2 weeks and now you can't fit in your clothes. So I started running, and then running led to swimming. I swam competitively when I was like in 3rd to 4th grade, way young. But what that did was, I wasn't like a superstar or anything like that. But what that did was, when you learn a sport like swimming or like golf or one of these motion technique driven sports, and you learn the technique at a young age, you have that in your body. So I was a good swimmer still, even in my 30s. I had swam for 20 years or whatever. I start swimming, and everything just started to escalate. My 10 laps turned into 20, turned into 40. I'm doing a mile. Now I'm swimming a mile and a half in the pool. And I'm like, I love this. It's like peace. I'm just working everything out. It's calm, the water, everything. It's just calm, right? So I signed up for this swim called the Shark Fest, which was to swim from Alcatraz. And I went down to the Bay Area. This is like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive from my house. And I'd never swam open water. And I swam with this team. I got hooked up, and it was like, it's like they're still there, actually. You can just drop in. It's called Water World Swim, San Francisco Bay. You drop in, they give you a briefing, and then you swim in there in like this aquatic park area, which is this big cove at the end of Hyde Street. So I got in the water with them, and I'm swimming, and I'm not the slowest person. There's people right next to me. And I swam like a mile, and I got out of there, and I said, I think that's the longest open water swim I've ever done. And they're like, really? You signed up for Shark Fest? I said, yeah, I'm give it a shot. And they're like, all right. They said, they're upselling me now. They're like, this thing they called an Alcatraz Clinic. You can come here and you get in the boat, and then you swim. They take you out to the island. You practice jumping in the water, then you swim a little bit, then you get in the boat and you do all this stuff. That sounds great. Okay, so I go home and I sign up. So I return to the Bay a month later, overcast day. There's a marine layer, 2 to 3 foot waves. It is choppy. I'm like,
yeah, holy moly.
So I meet Coach Pedro, he may be the world record holder, over 500 Alcatraz crossings. Oh, and wow. It's me and this coach and a couple. So, all right, now we're in the boat, and we're going out there. And they're talking, and the coach says to me, I'm going to be directly next to you the entire time. Make sure you're looking for me and stay connected, and we're going to be fine. Jump out of the boat, and there's 3 foot waves. So you'd swim up, take a breath, turn, there's no water, and it'd slam you like in the face. I'm like, this is fun. Like, this is kind of getting beat up out here. This is like, it was almost like a wrestling practice back in the day. I'm like, I'm really kind of into this. You're like up and down. And so I'm with this guy, and this guy is the coolest, calmest, but he's hell bent to cross.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm just swimming right on him, right on his hip the whole time. We swim up to Fort Mason. The current was so bad that we missed our beach by like half a mile. Like, it pushed us that far.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
So we're like 100 yards from shore, and he's like, okay, let's get in the boat. I'm like, I swam all this way, and that's where the beach is. Can I just go to the beach? He goes, all right, hurry up. So I swim to the beach and back, all that. Yeah. So I get back in the boat, and the couple is in there. Like, they weren't with us. They were ahead of us. They're like huddled up, like shivering. And I'm like, hey, that was cool. And the guy says to me, that is one of the top 2 or 3 hardest crossings I have ever had. And I go, come on, you say that every time. And the couple's like, you have no idea. I'm like, I'm like, well, if I can make that. So then I ended up doing that swim later, and it was vastly easier.
Oh, wow.
Harder. And And I got hooked. And then the big race that I did in San Francisco is called Swim Around the Rock, where you start on the beach, swim to the island, go around it, and then you come back. So it's like between 3 and 4 miles. So I did that one.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was all like a quest just to heal. It was,
Yeah.
I had so much trash inside of me, just this energy and anger and depression and everything.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a lifeline. And I'm telling you, if you're feeling that way, sports, these long, grinding, intimate, personal journeys, when you're out there and you're swimming 2 miles, or it's like a mile and a half, roughly mile and a quarter, depending on how you do it, from Alcatraz to the beach. And it takes, let's say, 30 to 40 minutes, maybe a little longer. When you're swimming and you're just looking at the Golden Gate Bridge and you're just counting your strokes, there's something that's very like rhythmic and soothing about that, that everything just like disappears.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
You're doing this, you're having this almost spiritual experience, and this, you're kind of getting all this like good feelings about, what you're doing physically, and you're still in that body.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's like my point, is that we can experience this tremendous, feeling of accomplishment, of, all the good stuff that people think that they need to look a particular way, act a particular way, eat a particular way to achieve. You're doing this, then you're doing it and you're supporting your body, and you're not thinking about like, oh, this my body, I've got to like eat weird, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just like, no, you're present, you're in your body fully and completely. You're saying, it doesn't matter, I'm doing this thing anyway. And not only that, you're like blowing other people that look different than you, right? If, and who other people would think would be doing better than you, out of the water. And that is just so freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was never, yeah, I think where you hit the skids on that is when you start comparing yourself. And as an athlete, everybody compares themselves to the clock, right?
Yep.
Like my time, what's my run time? And
Right.
I got to hit the splits. And yeah, I never did that. Like, as funny as it sounds, I don't even bike with an odometer. I just bike. Like, I just do it total zen. Like, I have a really nice road bike. No, I don't care. It's not about the time, the distance, or whatever. It's about how good of a time you're having doing it. And it's like all that other stuff kind of comes. Like when I did the Swim Around the Rock race, I did it twice. The person who won that race was an Olympian. Like for like training, it was the '08 Olympics, and there were some countries that sent a couple Olympians there. I was competing against them. Now, if you say, wow, I didn't beat the guy who won it, I didn't make the podium, but the Olympian won it. I mean, that's absurd, right?
Yeah.
You're just a guy who sits behind a desk.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell you what, I didn't take last. I took 31st out of 35 people.
That's awesome.
And I made it. A couple people withdrew. And it makes me proud that somebody who is like a college swimmer from Stanford pulled out, but I didn't, and that's the cool stuff about sports is you're only there for you. You're your own competitor.
Yep.
It's the person in the mirror. I mean, that's it. And sometimes it's not about like the time, it's just hanging on.
Yeah.
Right. Climbing a mountain is not about, nobody cares. Nobody's ever asked me how many minutes or hours did it take you to climb Mount Rainier, Mount Shasta?
Sure.
It's all about like, what did it look like up there? All that kind of stuff, like the fun sensory, like what does the bay taste like?
Yes.
But do you think people don't ask, like you do Boston, they're going to ask your time or where you qualified. But when you do things that are out of people's scope, like swim to Alcatraz and back or climb a mountain, people can't conceptualize that. So they can't, like other athletes, right? Because that's generally out of a swimmer's scope, a biker's scope, a runner's scope. They're doing the standard because they don't just look in the mirror and think about themselves and how they can improve themselves. It's all this external stuff. Or if they are internalizing it, it's not in a good way. Yeah. So it's kind of like, Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's aggravating as an athlete and B, as a practitioner. And so wonderful that you're having an experience where people are asking you about the scenery, what it felt like, things like that, because that is what's most important. And
Yeah.
it kills me again to hear, because all I'm thinking about is, I bet if you did the San Francisco Marathon, people would ask what your time was. Like
I did do the San Francisco Marathon, and my time was like 5:45.
And I'm sure people will, because athletes can, I've done a marathon, therefore I can
that then.
compare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's silly
Mm-hmm.
to think about that. But unfortunately, people don't have fun with their sports anymore.
Right.
It's for weight loss. It's for some sort of weird comparison. And to say, I did.
Briefly, my Boston story is I did not qualify for Boston. The way I got into Boston, I worked for Hewlett Packard in the 2000s, and HP was an equipment sponsor of the Boston Marathon.
Oh, nice.
And they had an employee sweepstakes for entries. They were like 75, and I entered it. I completed the local marathon, CIM in Sacramento, and that qualified me to enter this Boston lottery. So I entered and they picked me, and I had a bib 26762 in 2009, and I ran Boston, and I beat 200 people.
That's amazing.
I beat 200 people. I finished like 26,700 something. The Boston Marathon, when it's over, has like a magazine it sends out with all the times. My time is on the last page. When I finished, a friend of mine likes this. When they finished, a guy in a hamburger costume passed me on Boylston and beat me. I tell you what, I had more fun than every single person on that course.
I bet you did, though, Rick.
Great. It was so fun. I had my name sign. I'm pointing to my name, and people are screaming. I'm just high-fiving like hundreds of people in a row. I mean, it was so fun. I mean, that's one of the best days of my life. And it's if you go into that saying, I think I ran Boston in like 5 hours, 20 minutes or something like that, in that neighborhood. If I need to break 5 hours or this is a bust, that would have, like, how counterproductive is that?
That's right.
I mean, you do marathons you want to do a good time, but it's clear when you're a marathon runner in the early portions of it, that if you're not feeling it, or there's something just off, like if your splits are just 5, 10, 15 seconds off, and you're going to have to go to like an uncomfortable pace early, you're not going to negative split, and you're going to have a rough time hitting your target. So it's like, I did that, and a friend of mine gave me this advice, and he's a Western States finisher. And the advice is to scrap the watch and have fun, and just turn the watch upside down. Don't worry about, are you making it, and just interact with the people, just goof around while you're out there. And at the end, if you get the medal and you make it, that's the most important thing. And in a race like that with, tens of thousands of people, just so many goofy characters, and kissing girls at Wellesley, and one guy on Heartbreak Hill, a guy in a Speedo like flies up the hill, like burns right past him, takes like a hard right into it must be like a frat house or a college house right on that part, and did a keg stand. I'm like, this is awesome. That's so funny.
Well, I love it. I mean, those are just awesome experiences, Rick. And we covered a lot of ground today in general, but as we're kind of like wrapping things up, I feel like, I feel like you've said so many things that I hope, listeners are kind of, listening and absorbing and taking a little bit to heart. But, do you have kind of an overall message that you kind of want to send out to people, based on even your experience and what you actually gained from your experience?
There's just so many different angles to that, and so many things to say, but I think you never count yourself out. When you're in the middle of something like chemotherapy, don't ask why, don't do the what if thing, don't try to make sense of it. You're not going to. There are no answers to why other than because. There are no answers to what if. There's no alternative reality that if cancer or whatever difficult traumatic situation didn't happen, I'd be this way. Like if you can give that up and let it go, that's going to take a lot of burden off of you. And then when you're ready to heal, take action. The biggest inspiration for me was Lance Armstrong. In 1996, there was nothing, right? And then this guy comes along and is trashing the bike and just, I mean, he's so brash and, he's on Capitol Hill and he's saying the word cancer. Those are big, big things. And I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to just turn the page and take action is the main thing. Like, just jump in, man. And what can go wrong? I mean, you will not be successful. You will not run a 5K if you don't get off the couch, right? Or you will never run a marathon if you're stuck in the 10K half marathon rut. And take it, try it. What's the worst that can happen? You don't finish, but you learn. And then you retool and go back, right? And I mean, sports have injuries. You just got to keep making these comebacks. And if you do, you take a look back and you're like, wow, I did some cool stuff. Like, you're not doing these things to like brag or like to pile up a bunch of accomplishments. You're doing it for fun. Like, to me, sports and getting out on the road and living healthy that's fun. Like, I enjoy listening to my music and, being outdoors and meeting other people who are doing the same thing. Like all those little universal things that kind of come together to make these things happen. It's a great time. So
that's awesome.
Go for it. And if you're a serious athlete, my challenge to you is to do a bunch of different stuff. Don't just do, I'm on my 120th marathon. Have you ever done a century ride? No. Well, try that. Diversify. Go climb a mountain. Go jump in a pool. Do some other wild stuff. It's it's fun. Like that. I was telling this is a side in between two pastries. Do a tangent here. One of the stories I was telling a friend of mine was right after I climbed Mount Rainier, I was in good like climbing shape. So they did one of those climb for air events.
Yes. Yeah.
It was funny because there were all these like trainer looking dudes, like they were wearing like weight belts and they're like
wearing weight belts.
Yeah, like or whatever they really were. And so like these people, like they start this event and they're like, go, and these trainers are like, "Urgh." So they they're flying up the stairs. And I just started like walking. So I climbed that thing 8 times in just under 2 hours. And these trainer guys like burned rubber once. Then they were sitting like in the party room or whatever. Like, I'm like, and then I walked in at the very end. They're like, hey, this guy just did it 8 times. And those guys are like, huh? Like,
that's amazing. It's so awesome.
You're
like, yeah, dude, that's what this body gets you.
It's just consistency. It's just, keep it cool and
it's
just
so
show up, and
just awesome, Rick. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's the truth. Show up and surprise them all,
Yeah.
And then we always like to ask our guests too, if you have a favorite food. I think I know what it is, but
pizza.
I knew it. I knew it. Of course it is.
It has to be. Pizza, French fries, those are the best. Not kale.
Not every day, but doggone it. I mean, like Y East Pizza, which is close to my house. God, are they good?
Yeah.
So shout out to them. Cool. You like it, Annie?
I love pizza.
Yeah. Where's your guys' favorite pizza place?
Oh, I like Jets.
Oh, where's that?
Their deep dish. If you order online, you get like 20% off.
Yeah, they're expensive,
cool.
But yeah.
Is it like is that what 124th and North?
Yeah, and North. Okay. Yep. Yeah, Jets Pizza is super good. They're like, we get a deep dish and then like their regular is good too. Yeah. But if you're gonna get deep dish, like you got to go for it. You know,
it's heavy, but it's good.
Yeah, but it's so good. You can get by with like that nice one square, and it's like,
oh yeah,
this is good.
Postpartum moms are entitled to any food they want.
Yes, it's true. I'm hungry all the time.
Yeah.
About you, Nicole, where's your go-to?
Well, again, like I can't do cheese, but I'll have like a bite of like my husband's whenever he gets it because I love it too, like love it. But he loves Jets as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
2 for Jets.
All right. Yeah.
It's good.
Thanks so much, Rick, for being here. We are going to put all of your information into our show notes, so please check that out. Feel free to contact Rick, whether for a high five or question, or you want to book him to speak at an event that you might be having. And
I'm
also
gonna pick up your book too.
yeah, make sure you check out his book as well. We'll put the link in there so you can take a peek at that. So thanks again, Rick, for being here. We so appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.
Awesome.
Bye.
Have questions you want to hear discussed on the show? Find us on Facebook or visit between2pastries.com and drop us a line. Want to support the show? Find us on Patreon for exclusive content. If you love the show, find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review.